Hello and welcome to Daily Memory Lab study session number 19. In today's study session, we will see Supply Under GST. We will revise page number 17 to 22, round 4. Then we will revise round 3 of page number 66 to 72. And then we will go to charge of GST from page number 18 to 13. From page number 8 to 13, we will revise round 2. And then we will read maybe 5 to 6 new pages today. On that note, let us set the pre-study session intention. Now I am going to study for 30 to 60 minutes with full focus. In this study session, I lower down all my expectations and embrace imperfection. I may or may not get big breakthroughs in this study session, and I am totally okay with it. I will most likely make mistakes in the next 30 to 60 minutes, and if I make them, I am not going to judge myself. I embrace my mistakes and reset my ambitions. My goal is not to achieve perfection. My goal is only to make a tiny progress in the next 30 to 60 minutes. Okay, on that note, let me go to page number 2.17. License, lease, rental and disposal. The dictionary meaning of the term license is a permission granted by competent authority to engage in a business or occupation or in an activity otherwise unlawful. The dictionary meaning of rental is an agreement to rent something or the amount of money that you pay to rent something, and that of lease is to make a legal agreement by which money is paid in order to use land, a building, a vehicle, or a piece of equipment for an agreed period of time. Black's Law Dictionary defines disposal as the sale, pledge, giving away, use, consumption, or any other disposition of a thing. Under GST, such licenses, leases, and rentals of goods with or without transfer of right to use are covered under the supply of service, because there is no transfer of title in such supplies. Such transactions are specifically treated as supply of service in Schedule 2 of CGST Act. As discussed earlier, one of the parameters to qualify as a supply of goods and or services is that a supply is made for a consideration. This parameter has been explicated in the following paragraphs. Consideration. The dictionary meaning of the word consideration is payment. Consideration need not always be in the form of money. It can be in money or in kind. It covers anything which might be possibly done, given, or made in exchange for something else. Further, a consideration need not always flow from the recipient of the supply. It can also be made by a third person. However, any subsidy given by the central government or a state government is not considered as consideration. That a deposit given in respect of the supply of goods or services or both shall not be considered as payment made for such supply unless the supplier applies such deposit as consideration for the said supply. The term consideration is defined under section 2 clause 31. Okay, consideration, payment in money or otherwise for the supply. Deposit to be considered as supply only when the supplier applies such deposit as consideration for the said supply. Monetary value of any act or forbearance for the supply by recipient or any other person, excluding subsidy given by the central or state governments. Let us examine the existence of consideration in the following 3 scenarios. Donations received by charitable institutions from individual donors without quid pro quo, artwork sent by artists to galleries for exhibition, no claim bonus offered by an insurance company to the insured. Donations received by charitable institutions from individual donors without quid pro quo. An important feature of consideration is quid pro quo, something in return, something for something. Donations received by the charitable organizations are treated as consideration only if there exists quid pro quo, that is, there is an obligation on the part of recipient of the donation or gift to do anything. Supply a service. Generally, institutions such as religious institutions, charitable organizations, schools, hospitals, orphanages, old age homes, etc., receive financial help or any other support in the form of donation or gift from the individual donors. In order to express the gratitude towards such help or support, the recipient institutions place a nameplate on or similar such acknowledgement in their premises. When the name of the donor is displayed in recipient institution's premises in such a manner which can be said to be an expression of gratitude, and a public recognition of donors' act of philanthropy is not aimed at giving publicity to the donor in such manner that it would be an advertising or promotion of his business, then it can be said that there is no supply of service for the payment in the form of donation. In other words, there is no obligation on the part of recipient of the donation or gift to do anything, that is, supply a service. Therefore, there is no GST liability on such payment made. Some examples of cases where there would be no taxable supply are as follows. Bhushan donated a blackboard to Yoganist Sansthan, a charitable yoga institution. Yoganist Sansthan printed underneath the blackboard so donated good wishes from Mr. Bhushan. Srimati Durga Devi donated some money to a temple in the memory of her father. The temple trust constructed a room in the temple complex from such donation and wrote donated by Srimati Durga Devi in the memory of her father on the door of the room. In above examples, it may be noticed that there is no reference or mention of any business activity of the donor which otherwise would have got advertised. Thus, GST is not leviable where all the following three conditions are satisfied, namely, gift or donation is made to a charitable organization, payment has the character of gift or donation, purpose is philanthropic, that is, it leads to no commercial gain and not advertisement. Artwork sent by artists to galleries for exhibition is not a supply as no consideration flows from the gallery to the artists. Artists give their work of art to galleries where it is exhibited for supply. However, no consideration flows from the gallery to the artists when the artwork are sent to the gallery for exhibition, and therefore the same is not supply. It is only when a buyer selects a particular artwork displayed at the gallery that the actual supply takes place, and applicable GST would be payable at the time of such supply. Circular number 22/22/2017, GST, dated 21/12/2017. No supply of service by the insured to the insurance company instead of no claim bonus offered by said insurance company to him. The issue which arose for consideration was whether the deduction on account of no claim bonus allowed by the insurance company from the insurance premium payable by the insured can be considered as consideration for the supply provided by the insured to the insurance company for agreeing to the obligation to refrain from the act of lodging insurance claim during the previous year or years. As per practice prevailing in the insurance sector, the insurance companies deduct no claim bonus from the gross insurance premium amount when no claim is made by the insured person during the previous insurance period. The customer or insured procures insurance policy to indemnify himself from any loss or injury as per the terms of the policy and is not under any contractual obligation not to claim insurance claim during any period covered under the policy instead of regarding NCB. It is therefore clarified that there is no supply provided by the insured to the insurance company in the form of agreeing to the obligation to refrain from the act of lodging insurance claim during the previous year, and NCB cannot be considered as a consideration for any supply provided by the insured to the insurance company. Okay, any transaction involving supply of goods and or services without consideration is not a supply unless it is deemed to be a supply under Schedule 1. Another parameter to qualify as supply of goods and or services is that a supply is made in the course or furtherance of business. This parameter has been expounded in the following paragraphs. In course or furtherance of business, GST is essentially a tax only on commercial transactions. Hence, only those supplies that are in the course or furtherance of business qualify as supply under GST. Resultantly, any supplies made by an individual in his personal capacity do not come under the ambit of GST unless they fall within the definition of business. Meaning of supply made in the course or furtherance of business. Any activity undertaken in course or for furtherance of business would constitute a supply. In order to understand the term in the course or furtherance of business, we need to first understand the term business. Business as defined under section 2 clause 17 inter alia includes any trade, commerce, manufacture, profession, vocation, etc., whether or not undertaken for a monetary benefit. The definition of business has been summarized in the diagram below. Any trade or commerce or manufacture, profession, etc., even if there is no pecuniary benefit, any activity incidental or ancillary to it, any activity of same nature, even if no volume or continuity, supply or acquisition of goods including capital goods and services in connection with commencement or closure of business, provision of facilities by club, association, etc. to its member for consideration, admission for consideration to any premises, services as holder of office accepted in course or furtherance of trade or profession, activities of a race club including by way of a race club including by way of a totalizator or a license to a bookmaker, or activities of a licensed bookmaker in such club, any activity by government or local authority as public authorities. Thus, business includes any activity or transaction which is incidental or ancillary. Okay, so we had completed till page number 22. This was the end of round 4 of the first segment. From page number 23 we'll proceed tomorrow. Now let us go to the next segment, round 3 of page number 66 to 72. 66. Okay, let us start from here. Composite supplies. Composite supplies means a supply made by a taxable person to a recipient and comprises 2 or more taxable supplies of goods or services or both, or any combination thereof, which are naturally bundled and supplied in conjunction with each other in the ordinary course of business, one of which is a principal supply, 2 clause 30. This means that in a composite supply, goods or services or both are bundled owing to natural necessities. The elements in a composite supply are dependent on the principal supply. Principal supply means the supply of goods or services which constitutes the predominant element of a composite supply and to which any other supply forming part of that composite supply is ancillary. Works contract and restaurant services are classic examples of composite supplies. But the GST law identifies both as supply of services and chargeable to specific rate of tax mentioned against each of such services. However, in respect of other composite supplies other than the 2 categories mentioned above, the need to determine the supply as a composite one will arise so as to determine the appropriate classification of such supply as supply of goods or supply of services, as also the appropriate rate of tax. It will be necessary to determine as to whether a particular supply is naturally bundled in the ordinary course of business and what constitutes principal supply in such composite supplies. How to determine whether the services are bundled in the ordinary course of business. Whether the services are bundled in the ordinary course of business or not would depend upon the normal or frequent practices followed in the area of business to which services relate. Such normal and frequent practices adopted in a business can be ascertained from several indicators, some of which are listed below. The perception of the consumer or the service recipient. If large number of service recipient of such bundle of services reasonably expect such services to be provided as a package, then such a package could be treated as naturally bundled in the ordinary course of business. Majority of service providers in a particular area of business provide similar bundle of services. Bundle of services of catering on board and services of transport by air is a bundle offered by majority of airlines. The nature of the various services in a bundle of services will also help in determining whether the services are bundled in the ordinary course of business. If the nature of services is such that one of the services is the main service and the other services combined with such service are in the nature of incidental or ancillary services which help in better enjoyment of a main service of the main service, then it would be treated as services bundled in the ordinary course of business. Service of stay in a hotel is often combined with provision of breakfast and a dinner provided free of cost during the stay. Such service is an ancillary service to the provision of hotel accommodation, and the resultant package would be treated as services naturally bundled in the ordinary course of business. So the 3 points that we have to understand is perception of the consumer. Okay, so perception of the consumer. Consumer naturally expects that this should be sold along with each other or done along with each other. If large number of service recipient of such bundle services reasonably expect such services to be provided as a package. So if the consumer itself themselves think it like a package, then that is first thing. Second thing is majority of service providers in a particular area of business provide similar bundle of service. At least if the service providers, majority of them, if they do it together collectively, and if they bundle the services, then okay, then nature of various service in a bundle of service itself will enhance the main service. Then also it will be treated as naturally bundled in the ordinary course of business. Okay, other illustrative indicators, not determinative but indicative. There is a single price or the customer pays the same amount no matter how much of the package they actually receive or use. The elements are normally advertised as a package. The different elements are not available separately. The different elements are integral to one overall supply. If one or more is removed, the nature of the supply would be affected. No straitjacket formula can be laid down to determine whether a service is naturally bundled in the ordinary course of business. Each case has to be individually examined in the backdrop of several factors, some of which are outlined above. The above principles explained in the light of what constitutes a naturally bundled service can be gainfully adopted to determine whether a particular supply constitutes a composite supply under GST, and if so, what constitutes the principal supply, so as to determine the right classification and the rate of tax of such composite supply. Some of the examples of composite supplies have been given below. A 5-star hotel is booked for a conference of 100 delegates on a lump sum package with the following facilities: accommodation for the delegates, breakfast for the delegates, tea and coffee during conference, access to fitness room for the delegates, availability of conference room, business center. As is evident, a bouquet of services is being provided. Many of them are chargeable to different effective rates of tax. If the principal service is described as convention service, it is able to capture the entire essence of the package. Thus, the principal service may be judged as convention service and charged to tax accordingly. However, it will be fully justifiable for the hotel to charge individually for the services as long as there is no attempt to offload the value of one service onto another service that is chargeable at a concessional rate. Poshak manufacturers entered into a contract with Chico Limited for supply of ready-made shirts packed in designer boxes at Chico Limited's outlet. Further, Poshak manufacturers would also get them insured during transit. In this case, supply of goods, packing materials, transport, and insurance is a composite supply, wherein supply of goods is the principal supply. When a consumer buys a television set and he also gets mandatory warranty and a maintenance contract with the TV, this supply is a composite supply. In this example, supply of TV is the principal supply and warranty and maintenance services are ancillary. A travel ticket from Mumbai to Delhi may include service of food being served on board, free insurance, and the use of airport lounge. In this case, transportation of passenger constitutes the predominant element of the composite supply and is treated as the principal supply, and all other supplies are ancillary. How to determine the tax liability on composite supplies? A composite supply comprising of two or more supplies, one of which is a principal supply, shall be treated as a supply of such principal supply. Accordingly, the entire value of composite supply, that is main supply and ancillary supply, shall be classified under the category of main supply and shall be taxed at the GST rate applicable to the main supply. This can be better understood with the help of the following example. Rati Computers supplies laptop worth rupees 52,000 along with laptop bag worth rupees 3,000 to a customer for 55,000, being naturally bundled. Supply of laptop bag along with the laptop is composite supply, which is treated as the supply of the principal supply, that is the laptop. Assuming that the rate of tax applicable on laptop is 18% and laptop bag is 28%, in the given case, rate of principal supply, that is laptop at 18%, will be charged on the entire value of 55,000. Okay, CBIC in the following cases has clarified issues as to whether the given supplies are composite supply, and if yes, what constitutes the principal supply in the given composite supply. Printing industry issues. The printing industry in India in particular faced a dilemma in determining whether the nature of supply provided was that of goods or services. Another doubt was whether, in case where certain contracts involved both supply of goods and services, whether the same would constitute a supply of goods or services, or if it would be a composite supply, and in case it is, then what would constitute the principal supply. Thus, it is clarified that supply of books, pamphlets, brochures, envelopes, annual reports, leaflets, carton boxes, etc., printed with logos, design, name, address, or other contents supplied by the recipient of such printed goods or composite supplies, and the question whether such supplies constitute supply of goods or services would be determined on the basis of what constitutes the principal supply. In the case of printing of books, pamphlets, brochures, annual reports, and the like, where only content is supplied by the publisher or the person who owns the usage rights to the intangible inputs, while the physical inputs, paper, including paper used for printing, belong to the printer, supply of printing is the principal supply, and therefore such supplies would constitute supply of service. In case of supply of printed envelopes, letter cards, printed boxes, tissues, napkins, wallpaper, etc., by the printer using its physical inputs, including paper to print the design logo supplied by the recipient of goods, predominant supply is supply of goods, and the supply of printing of the content is ancillary to the principal supply of goods, and therefore such supplies would constitute supply of goods. Foods supplied Food supplied to the patients. Food supplied to the inpatients as advised by the doctor or nutritionist is a part of composite supply of healthcare and not separately taxable. Other food supplied by a hospital to patients not admitted or their attendants or visitors are taxable. Activity of bus body building. In case of bus body building, there is supply of goods and services. Thus, classification of this composite supply as good or service would depend on which supply is the principal supply, which may be determined on the basis of facts and circumstances of each case. Retreading of tires. In retreading of tires, which is a composite supply, the predominant element is the process of retreading, which is a supply of service. Rubber used for retreading is an ancillary supply. Supply of retreaded tires, where the old tires belonging to the supplier of retreaded tires is a supply of goods. Retread tires are revamped tires on which the worn out tread, the part of that tire that makes contact with the surface of the road, is replaced using new tread. Supply of food and beverages at cinema halls, taxable as restaurant service. Eating joint is a wide term which includes refreshment or eating stalls, kiosks, counters, or restaurant at a cinema hall. The cinema operator may run these refreshment, eating stalls, kiosks, counter, restaurant themselves, or they may give it on contract to a third party. The customer may like to avail the services supplied by these refreshment counters or choose not to avail these services. Further, the cinema operator can also install vending machines or supply any other recreational service such as through coin operated machines which the customer may or may not avail. It is hereby clarified that supply of food or beverages in a cinema hall is taxable as a restaurant service as long as the food or beverages are supplied by way of or as part of a service and supplied independent of the cinema exhibition service. The food or beverages are supplied by way of or part of service or part of a service and supplied independent of the cinema exhibition service, where the sale of cinema ticket and the supply of food and beverages are clubbed together, and such bundled supply satisfies the test of composite supply. The entire supply will attract GST at the rate applicable to the service of exhibition of cinema, which is the principal supply. So we have completed the second segment. Let's go to the third segment, charge of GST, page number 8 to page number 13. Okay, page number 8, definition of India. Territory of India as referred to in Article 1 of the Constitution, its territorial waters, seabed and subsoil underlying such waters, continental shelf, exclusive economic zone or any other maritime zone as referred to in the territorial waters, continental shelf, exclusive economic zone and other maritime zones Act 1976. The airspace above its territory and territorial waters. State GST law of the respective state or union territory with legislature extends to the whole of that state or union territory. Maharashtra GST Act extends to the whole of the state of Maharashtra. State includes a union territory with legislature. Integrated GST extends to the whole of India. UT GST extends to the union territories of Andaman Nicobar Islands, Lakshadweep, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu, Ladakh, Chandigarh and other territory where union territories without legislature. For the purposes of this act, each of the territories specified in subclauses A to F shall be considered to be a separate union territory. Sudhakar Enterprises has undertaken an intra-state supply of taxable goods. CGST and UT GST will be paid on supply provided the supply is made within Delhi SGST, Puducherry SGST Ladakh, no, Ladakh is a union territory without legislature, so that is there. Jammu Kashmir, yes, GST. Levy and collection of CGST and IGST. So here we said that same thing has been repeated for both CGST and IGST. So I will be reading only the CGST portion here. Section 9 of CGST Act, subsection 1. Subject to the provisions of subsection 2, there shall be levied a tax called Central Goods and Services Tax on all intrastate supplies of goods or services or both, except on the supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption on the value determined under section 15 and at such rates not exceeding 20%, as may be notified by the government on the recommendations of the council, and collected in such manner as may be prescribed and shall be paid by the taxable person. Subsection 2. Central tax on the supply of petroleum crude, high-speed diesel, motor spirit, natural gas and aviation turbine fuel shall be levied with effect from such date as may be notified by the government on the recommendations of the council. Government may, on the recommendations of the council, by notification, specify categories of supply of goods or services or both, the tax on which shall be paid on reverse charge basis by the recipient of such goods or services or both, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such recipient as if he is the person liable for paying the tax in relation to the supply of such goods or services or both. The government may, on the recommendations of the council, by notification, specify a class of registered persons who shall, in respect of supply of specified categories of goods or services or both, received from an unregistered supplier, pay the tax on reverse charge basis as the recipient of such supply of goods or services or both, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such recipient as if he is the person liable for paying the tax in relation to such a supply of goods or services or both. The government may, on the recommendations of the council, by notification, specify categories of services, the tax on intrastate supplies of which shall be paid by the electronic commerce operator if such services are supplied through it, and all the provisions of this act shall apply to such e-commerce operator as if he is the supplier liable for paying the tax in relation to the supply of such services, provided that where an e-commerce operator does not have a physical presence in the taxable territory, any person representing such e-commerce operator for any purpose in the taxable territory shall be liable to pay tax, provided further that where an e-commerce operator does not have a physical presence in the taxable territory and also does not have a representative in the said territory, such electronic commerce operator shall appoint a person in the taxable territory for the purpose of paying tax, and such person shall be liable to pay tax. Okay, so we have completed all the old revisions that are supposed to be done. Now let us proceed from page number 3.13, maybe 14, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, we will read till maybe till here. Okay, analysis. CGST shall be levied on all intrastate supplies of goods or services or both. The tax shall be collected in such manner as may be prescribed and shall be paid by the taxable person. However, in the intrastate supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption intrastate supply of alcoholic liquor for human consumption is outside the purview of GST. Value for levy. Transaction value under section 15 of the CGST Act. Okay, rates of CGST are rates as may be notified by the government on the recommendations of the GST Council. Maximum rate of CGST can be 20%. In case of interstate supplies of goods and or services, IGST is levied on transaction value under section 15 of the CGST Act or IGST Act. Since alcoholic liquor for human consumption is outside the purview of GST, IGST is also not leviable on the same. IGST is the sum of CGST and SGST or UTGST. The maximum rate of IGST can be 40%. However, CGST or IGST on supply of the following items has not been yet levied. It shall be levied with effect from such date as may be notified by the government on the recommendations of the council. Petroleum crude, high-speed diesel, motor spirit, commonly known as petrol, natural gas, and aviation turbine fuel. Tax payable on supply of goods or services or both under reverse charge. CGST or IGST shall be paid by the recipient of goods or services or both on reverse charge basis in the following cases. Supply of such goods or services or both as notified by the government on the recommendations of the council, GST council. Supply of specified categories of goods or services or both by an unregistered supplier to specified class of registered persons as notified by the government on recommendation of GST council. All the provisions of the CGST Act, IGST Act shall apply to the recipient in the aforesaid cases as if he is the person liable for paying tax in relation to the supply of such goods or services or both. Okay, so let us understand reverse charge mechanism. Generally, the supplier of goods or services is liable to pay GST. However, under the reverse charge mechanism, the liability to pay GST is cast on the recipient of the goods or services. Reverse charge means the liability to pay tax is on the recipient of supply of goods or services instead of the supplier of such goods or services in respect of notified categories of supply. 2 clause 98. It may be notified that the underlying principle of an indirect tax is that burden of tax has to be ultimately passed on to the recipient. GST being an indirect tax, this principle holds good for GST. Under normal circumstances, the statutory liability to deposit GST and undertake compliances, that is to obtain registration, deposit the tax, filing returns, etc., is on the supplier, while he may recover the same from its recipient. However, under reverse charge mechanism, the statutory liability to deposit GST and undertaking compliance requirements shifts from supplier to the recipient. There are two types of reverse charge scenarios. First scenario occurs in case of supply of specified categories of goods or services covered by section 9 subsection 3 of CGST SGST. Second scenario occurs in case of supply of specified categories of goods or services made by an unregistered supplier to specified class of registered persons. Okay. Goods and services notified under reverse charge under section 9 subsection 3. Supplies of goods taxable under reverse charge, that is supply of goods where tax is payable by a recipient. Goods like cashew nuts not shelled or peeled, BD wrapper leaves, tobacco leaves and raw cotton. Supply of raw cotton when supplied by an agriculturist to any registered person. Supply of lottery when supplied by state government or union territory or any local authority to lottery distributor or selling agent. Silk yarn when supplied by manufacturer of silk yarn to any registered person. Used vehicles, seized in and confiscated goods, old and used goods, waste and scrap when supplied by central government, state government, union territory or any local authority to any registered person. Priority sector lending certificate when supplied by registered person to any registered person or taxable under reverse charge. Okay. So these are the goods that are covered under reverse charge. Now let us talk about services. Notification number 13 dated 28/6/2017 as amended has notified the following categories of supply of services wherein whole of the tax shall be paid on reverse charge basis by the recipient of services. Okay, category of supply of services: supplier of service, recipient of service. Supply of services by a goods transport agency in respect of transportation of goods by road to any factory registered under or governed by Factories Act, any society registered under Societies Registration Act, under any law for the time being in force in any part of India, any cooperative society established by or under any law, any person registered under CGST, IGST or SGST Act, or any body corporate established by or any other law, any partnership firm, whether registered or not, under any law including association of person, any casual taxable person. Okay, so these are the recipients of supply. Service, who provides it? Goods transport agency. And then these are the recipient of services. Okay, factory, cooperative societies registered under Society Registration Act, and then cooperative society, and then any registered person, any company, any partnership firm, and any casual taxable person located in the taxable territory, hereinafter referred as specified recipients. However, reverse charge mechanism shall not apply to services provided by a GTA by way of transport of goods in a goods carriage by road to a department, establishment of the central government, state government or union territory, or a local authority or governmental agencies which has taken registration under CGST Act only for the purpose of deducting tax under section 51 and not for making a taxable supply of goods or services. These services have been simultaneously exempted from GST, thus there will be no tax liability in this case. Okay. Further, nothing contained in this entry shall apply where the supplier has taken registration under CGST Act 2017 and exercised the option to pay tax on services of GTA in relation to transport of goods supplied by him under forward charge, and the supplier has issued a tax invoice to the recipient charging GST at the applicable rates and has made prescribed declaration on such invoice issued by him. So on that note, we can stop for the day. I'll just quickly have a look. Okay, it goes on a little longer than I expected, so we will stop here itself. Page number 18. Today is 22nd October. So we have come to the end of study session number 19. I hope you stayed with me till here, and I hope today's study session was of use to you. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you and bye bye.